So I'm down here on Oak and Rush with Prada, and you hear the Magnificent Mile, but you don't hear any advertising about Oak Street. Giorgio Armani and many, like, these smaller shops, but still very high end. Yeah. And so they're all here on Oak and Walton. But you don't really hear anything. You hear Magnificent Mile, like Todd's. This is where a girl who I was friends with, who went to the University of Arizona, she worked there. And I think but again, you don't hear much. I never see advertising for the Drake Hotel. Never. Especially the Drake with, Michigan Avenue, Oak Street, Walton, I never see any advertising. I don't see advertising for Water Tower. So here's Walton. But it's funny. Here's Gucci. Like I said, the reason it took me all those years to finish college was because everybody forced me out continuously. It's just like my CFP. I started in early 2000s, I think 2003. I didn't finish till 2011. So it's because I was forced out continuously. So nothing was an easy road for me. Even the University of Chicago getting that designation, I couldn't go through smoothly. So I had to stop and then go back, and it's basically gather money and then go back and finish and piecemeal it. But here, I'll give you my client Dean Patel and his wife Mita, I should say, Mita. But here's Wilson right here, and they're on Walton Sporting Goods. And I first met with Dean in 2011 when I was at GCG. And I landed Dean as a client, I think, in 2013. And so it took me 12 years to land him as a client. I met with Rick, this guy from McGuire Woods. I met with him in 2001 to become a client for me, and this is just purely insurance. He did business with me in, I think, 2014. So it took me 13 years to land him as a client. And then all my other clients took a year to 2 years to land. Nothing came easy. These people made me prove myself. So you got the famous Yugos with the big frog on top, the animated frog slipping his cocktail in his, cocktail outfit next to Gibson's. And then there's Tavern on Rush. Oh, it opened up across the street. Huh. Tavern on Rush is back. That's awesome. And so, and the Lux Bar over here, that's owned by Gibson's over there, is really good. And then the breakfast place right next door, the Original Pancake House, is good. I love going there. And now the Bellevue, and then there's the Bellevue Hotel right here. And then there's another kind of intimate hotel right here to the right next to Illuminati's. I forget what it's called. But it's a nice, intimate area. And so... So the area, what doesn't fit with all of this is called the Gold Coast, right here at Cedar, and that was the Cedar Hotel, that's right. At this intersection where Rush meets State, this is the top of the Golden Triangle. Oak is the base of the Golden Triangle. Rush and State make up the size. Yeah, it's an isosceles triangle, actually. Not a normal triangle. But again, what ends up different here is the Hangout, which has been here for a long time down this street. That's open late. That brings a lot of late night crowd. So it's totally different. You can have a highly sophisticated crowd, and then you have a different type. And so it's a contrast. So you end up not getting locals. And so this division tends to bring everybody from outside, and you don't tend to get locals going down here. The locals go up to the Golden Triangle, Oakton, Rush, and State. They hang out up there, and this gets a totally non-local crowd. And so it's interesting. And so they've been, how do you say, not in synergy for a long time. It used to be, when you saw the movie About Last Night, it was about young urban professionals. And so that was, they hung out here, and they had, the young urban, the yuppie crowd. And then it moved away from it. It could go back to that type of crowd, a more sophisticated environment, which would fit into the neighborhood. So there's a big divergence. Showing pictures from the dance floor. What's going on inside? Okay, that makes sense. You can see that image. House music is back. Okay. But are they drawing from, and where I be drawing from is looking to draw from UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago, their juniors and seniors, and then their graduate students, and then that's not too far away, and then from Moody College, and then from Columbia College. And so I'd be looking to grab their upperclassmen, and truly, and then their fraternities and sororities. I would be going from Loyola Law School, truly, Loyola Law School, Feinberg School of Medicine, and I would be targeting all of them. and having them come down here, because those are going to be the future people that are purchasing and living in this place. And the crowd would fit, and it refreshes, so it turns over and you get a lot of new faces, and so you have a good churn in people, and with that churn you can watch how they wear fashion and how they interact and what they like, and from around the country. Like one thing, you just ask, when you're on the ID, you just record the zip code. Truly, not their address or anything, you just want the zip code. And you would like to know, do they go to, Moody Bible College? Did they go to UIC? Did they go to, there's Northwestern Law down here, and then there's Feinberg, their medicine school, truly. And then they have also graduate school, other graduate programs down here, because I took economics down here, graduate school economics at Northwestern. So that's in the building right next to Feinberg. It has, it's on Chicago right there. It has all kinds of graduate classes. And then you have DePaul, which is down here. DePaul's grad school, UIC's law school. There's, I think it's Kendall and others. But this is where, if I was that on Rush Street, I would be trying to redefine my environment, and then the neighbors would embrace them better because they're bringing in a much more sophisticated crowd, right? And that fits. And then you don't get the gunshots or the gangbanging, the fights. You get just a better temperament of people. And if you have problems, they go to grad school, and then you can call the University of Northwestern University, DePaul University, Loyola University. If you have problems with one of the students, and that's what some merchants did at the U of A, and the ombudsman gets involved, and they truly, because they have a moral and ethical code for the university, and you call the university, if you know they go to the university, they're going to call them in. They represent the university. And when they do inappropriate action that reflects on the university, and you can call them in. So, again, I don't get it. But again, it creates a much better cohesive thing, and it's easier to market to. And then you get the fraternities and sororities, they need places to hang, and so those become hangouts. And so you can pair up the bars with, you go to the schools and you see what fraternal orders they have from fraternities and sororities, and you see what they have, and you target them. I'm not an Uber or Lyft, but I mean, they do things all wrong, not the way I would do it. I had a crowd, and when I drove things, I knew exactly where I was going, and I drove them. Like at Charlie's, I made friends with all the boats with the staff at Riva's, Whittle Newton's, and everything else. And I knew what time they shut down. And when they got off at Whittle Newton's at midnight and they closed down at Riva at midnight, while we were open to 2 and 3, they flooded us and all the boats were done. They would flood into us and I'd be slammed from midway to 2, midnight to 3 in the morning. Literally slammed. And then during the day, we would get tons of pier traffic. And then I would invite people up from around the city. But these individuals have no idea what they're doing. It's like dirtbags. It made it because of dirtbags. Gary didn't have any idea what to do for marketing or anything else. He bought a system, a place that was very popular, and he had nothing to do with it. He didn't make good connections with the fraternities or sororities. His business could have been 10 times what it was. He owned it, but he had no idea. And he had all the expertise, and all they had to do is ask, but, I just worked the bar, did the door, and so on, and waited tables, and that's all I was. Just like at Excalibur or these places, even Domino's and that. Truly, Joey, and they never tapped into my expertise. So, just because they're idiots at Panera and Potbellies and so on, that's all their fucking fault. At least a little bit at Dave & Buster's, they did a little bit. Ask my opinion on this and that. And I would offer things here or there. But I didn't want to tread on their stuff. They're the big dogs. So, I just do my job and play the dummy. And I didn't play the dummy, but they didn't want my expert. Pat told Rich where I was from and so on and so forth. And they didn't tap into it. And so I just, it's their business. I'll work my job. They don't want my input. So I just leave it alone. Truly. So it's not my fault that these people are too stupid, but Jen's friends, they would tap into my expertise all the time. Because they knew my background and they would ask me. Julie Cho used to ask me, and she wasn't Jen's friends, but Jen and her both went to University of Chicago. It's funny, I had crushes on different Korean girls and dated Korean girls, and they all went to the University of Chicago, in particular Booth. And it's funny how that ended up that way. But they were really smart. Jen tapped into my expertise. I gave her tons of stuff for her mom's cleaner. She didn't implement a lot of it, but I helped out with different systems. She tapped into my expertise for real foundations all the time, and I helped out on all of her consulting projects. I was a consultant to the consultants. Truly. We talk about her projects, and I would give her insights. And so I helped all those builders, Toll Brothers, everything she was working on, Wawa, the convenient chain and that. I would give her insight into things, and she's a smart girl, and she would implement them. They're working on it. She'd bring up certain things, and I give her certain things, and so I touched a lot of high-end clients indirectly through her in that way. But the funny thing is, you talk about the diamond in the rough. Well, people don't know what they have. And it's amazing how many people don't look at your resume. Like my clients, they see out my licenses and that, but don't look at my history and don't understand all my expertise. But me and David, we did a lot of business consulting, but they didn't understand his background. David started a mortgage company. He owned a bank. He ran numerous banking. He did securitization. He did the first securitization of a certain type of loan structure that was big. He was the first one in the banking industry to do it. And we would meet with clients, and it's like, it's funny when they turn you down. It's like, people are such idiots that it's beyond me how fucking stupid they are. And Costa is right. I mean, it's unbelievable. You think they would wake up, and there are some bright ones, but like SIA, who I work with and place business with, but the head of their investment group, I was at a thing and he said, you can call me anytime, and if you want, you can have David on, and anything you want to talk about at any time, I'm all ears. Here's my number, and free to call me. Now, he's managing hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, and he wants my insight. And he's like, here's my number, call any time. Whatever you want to talk about, I'll talk about. So, it's funny, because he thought it was a privilege to talk to me, that it was an honor that I would call him, and if I wanted to talk about anything, just tell me and we're talking about it. But you go by these places and you think it's like Portillo's. Okay, it's got a good hot dog, okay, so on, and it's growing, but really, do they position themselves correctly? Truly. So, but I just keep my, sight to self, and I'm still fucking McDonald's. I was here before they redid this, and she asked me, and I'm like, keep the Hard Rock. Keep the Hard Rock McDonald's. It was the only McDonald's that was tied into hard rock, pop, it was tied into rock and roll. It had Elvis and the Beatles, and that's just incredible nostalgia. Right across from the Hard Rock, because the Hard Rock restaurant. But they went to a green thing, which is great, but they lost all that nostalgia. And, I love that. They had museums and set up with all the different, they had the different mannequins of Elvis and the Beatles and others. But they went in another direction, which it was unique in Chicago. I don't even know what these guys are doing. It looks like the guy in the window is going to do a drive-by, the way he's positioned. So anyways, which, if you know, in Chicago, the only group that, besides the Italian Mafia before, but they didn't really do them. Truly, the Italian Mafia rarely ever did a drive-by. But who holds it here? In LA, it's Hispanics. But here, it's blacks. The gun culture. And has the gun culture did blacks well? Or Hispanics well? Truly. Think about it. Has it really done them well? Has it really built? The only ones that make it are the ones that escape that culture. So it hasn't really done them well. And why white people did better, because we got rid of the Italian Mafia, the Russian Mafia. Truly, we got rid of street gangs in the 70s. But you know what killed the white population? We got rid of these negativities, but what transplanted it? Drugs. So, lots of, I know, like my friend Mike Whitehead eventually died of cocaine abuse, and many others got into it and drugs, yes. That includes illegal steroids. So, they got into heroin, like, you know, Kurt Cobain ended up killing himself, and many of the stars, Robert Downey Jr. went to jail. Many ended up in jail. Woody Harrelson's father went to jail for transporting marijuana, I think it was. And basically what happened was, to the white population, is it got rid of the negativity, the gangs in the 70s, and then eventually the Italian Mafia really died out in the 80s. By the beginning of the 90s, it was basically almost totally wiped out. And then the Russian mob was wiped out. And they got rid of that negativity, but what came in is the cartel came in. Chicago was the home of the Sinaloa cartel. And the largest cocaine bust in this history of the United States, I think, at the time, was because somebody reported on the south side a rental truck that was sitting there. It was one of those big rental trucks. And they opened it up, and it was stuff from cocaine to front and back. They didn't bust anyone. They said because of 9/11 and everything, the driver got scared. But it should have told them that was just one truckload. And if you get from front to back, top to bottom, I mean, it was packed solid with bricks of coke. And you would think they would understand how much flow was coming through. It was incredible. The amount of flow coming through the city. Unbelievable. And it was flowing out to every part of the United States. I don't know if it was flowing up to Canada, but every part. It came from Chicago to the East Coast, everything. They used it as a strategic logistics point. And this is where El Chapo did all his business. And all that flowed through here. But again, you look what happens, and you see these things, and you get rid of one evil, and then you allow another evil in because you don't close the borders, you don't do things correctly, and then you get people flowing through. And then you bring in these fucking pieces of shit. And they're pieces of shit because look at how they fucking drive. That makes you a piece of shit, not your skin color. My father drove a cab. I drove an Uber and Lyft. I don't do any of the shit these people do. My father never did. And he drove a cab in the 70s. The shit that these people do? I mean, hey, call me a bad guy, but I kick their motherfucking ass. So you watch this, and I watch this all around the country. All of them, the biker gangs and that, with the crystal meth, who were all white, and they get the stuff from the cartels, truly, and they bring in all the production chemicals and everything else. They need to get access to the chemicals, and they get them access to the chemicals, and then they have their kitchens, and they cook the meth. And it's a fucking nightmare. It's like you get rid of one thing and you get another. So that's what happened. And yeah, the black community with crack cocaine, heroin's too expensive for them. Because the purity went up in that, it moved into the whites. Look at all the heroin addicts that were in music and everything. They did crack cocaine. It's dirt cheap. So, still, drug problem. And so you get rid of one problem and you get another. Now, like this guy behind me. I drove around the city forever, and I don't do this shit. Look at this big fat fuck. It's like, how many pieces of shit are you gonna get in one bowl? You keep on trading off, and this is what I said with the immigration system. You can't have sanctuary cities because you can't control the quality of the fucking product. The product is the human capital. And how do you think the Sinaloa cartel got all their fucking people in? Ask the two brothers that were the main people for the Sinaloa cartel. Ask them how they got in all these people that were running their shit. Because they weren't from here. And so when you don't have people that do discovery with properties, where I need your lease agreements, and the city of Chicago should be going through every building and asking all the banks and that, I need the mortgages. I need to know who's on the mortgage, who owns the property, who's residing in the property. And if you don't know, you got to know your client. It's the same thing for people in the mortgage industry and rental industry. You implement know your client. And that means they have to do an extensive background check. But the thing is, you get rid of these problems, and you open up when all the stuff that was flooding in through Europe into the French Connection, that you wipe that all out. And then you let the borders open in Latin America, and it floods in. They just moved. You shut down Miami, you get rid of the cocaine cowboys and so on, you clean, and they just move in to Texas, coming in across the border, coming across the water right there by Texas, coming in California, and they just moved to the West Coast. And then they rotated up to Canada and come down from Canada. You don't understand. You got to protect it all. So they're just looking for another logistical hole. And they flew in from airlines. They used cargo airlines to move shitloads of stuff in to O'Hare Airport. What shitty customs. So you get one problem after another. And so what happened? And the one thing that the Asians stayed better out of is they stayed out of that. Even as my pastor, he was a cocaine dealer who was Korean. But primarily, they stayed out of that shit. You had some in California and Chinatown and so on. But mainly, they all surrounded themselves through the church. And especially like Koreans and that, but Chinese, you see the Chinese churches that are Christian and everything else. And so they operated more through that, and hence they kept their nose clean. Now, with, keeping money under the table and not claiming it. Not that they were doing black market, which they weren't necessarily doing anything black market. They were just not claiming all their profits. And so it's a different issue. And so you see these problems, and the government doesn't understand it, from the federal to the state to the county to the local. And we change every 4 years and so on. Well, if you're not up on the trends and you get in office and you're there for 4 years and then you're gone, as we study presidents are more effective a lot of times in second terms, the end of the first, second term. But we rotate them, and it's like here. This fucking guy coming up on me fast in the city with his livery. I mean, why don't they just pull their fucking licenses? We don't need them. There's robo-taxis coming online, right? And guess what the great thing about robo-taxis? You can't tell them the speed. Truly. You can't do any of that. They won't tailgate. They won't run red lights. They won't speed. I mean, they're just putting themselves out of a job by not complying, because they make the argument for robo-taxis huge. Get rid of the scumbag livery driver who breaks the fucking law, who tailgates, who fucking heavy brakes, who fucking pollutes with revving his engine and all that. And you go with the Weevos. Where are those, taxis? Because, hey, Lyft has their, Uber has their own. They're doing it. So, believe me, they're just looking for a footage to implement it. And one of the things, all these violations, well, it makes the perfect thing to implement it. Because the computer will tell them, hurry up, go fast over here or there. The computer will tell them, go fuck yourself. Truly, it won't respond to them. They could say go faster all day long, and the computer is going to say 2 fingers, like, fuck you, passenger, fuck you. Truly. So they're just pushing themselves out. They're giving every reason to go with driverless taxi cabs. So Uber's developing their own. I don't know about Lyft, but I know for a fact Uber is. So eventually that bus driver will be gone. See, the greatest thing about computers is that they don't talk back. Even, who is this? Edelman said that. He said, just fire the people at the burger places, get a robot to do the burgers, and you don't worry about, as you're a manager, that the robot's going to talk back to you. It does exactly what the fuck you tell it. No insubordination, no giving you shit. It seems like a great thing for me, because I terminated staff instantly if you talk back to me. It was insubordination, and I told everyone, you talk back to me, you're automatically fired. I do not take to talking back to. But the thing is, Rick Edelman said it, just get rid of these fucking pieces of shit. They bring nothing to the table but fucking problems. It's easy to deal with if they need a replacement part or a software upgrade. It's not a headache like some fucking human. And you look down here, and black people, like, oh, I'll give you a professional basketball. Ron Artest, they got rid of him. Too much of a fucking risk. And what did they do? It showed. He went into the stands, had that big deal. He got eventually kicked out of the NBA. Too much of a fucking risk. So the Bulls kept Dennis Rodman because he was on a tight leash. Truly, the biggest thing he did was the book signing where he dressed in a dress. But I hung out. No fucking problems. I hung out with Ron Artest and that. They don't create any fucking problems. That's why the team wins. They don't have fucking headaches. So Dennis was a headache in Detroit, but not a headache here. The Zen Master had him. And he didn't cause problems. I watched the New York Yankees under Billy Martin. The fucking players getting paid a lot. They were all fucking causing problems. Driving Billy Martin fucking crazy. And the thing is, Steinbrenner didn't back Martin, and then he fired him. The team would get worse, and they would. And then Martin got hired back. And then he would fire him again, and the team would plummet again. But Billy kept on saying, let me stick the screws to these pieces of shit. You could read this. But that's why Belichick won. So as big as his quarterback was, he wouldn't fucking dare talk back or disobey. So there was no one bigger than Belichick, and Robert Kraft had his back. And my friend Teddy Bruschi, he went to the U of A, he played for them and won Super Bowls. You talk back, you're fucking gone. So it didn't matter who the fuck you were. So again, respect. And if you didn't, you got your fucking contract terminated. But that's why they win all the championships. Now we got all the shitbags telling you what you should do, and they're just a bunch of fucking idiots. I mean, I got taught a long time ago, opinions are like assholes and everybody has one. And those opinions, most of them don't mean shit. Yeah, it's how you feel, but besides how you feel or think, meaning implementing it to matter to something else, well, no. So it's subjective, and I understand how you feel, but your feelings carry no fucking weight beyond you. There's very few people that move the needle. So look at it. You got Bill Gates, right? He created Microsoft with Paul Allen and a couple others. You got Steve Jobs that created Apple. We're talking people that moved the needle. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, truly. And then Vanguard, one person, he started it. So you have very few people that moved the needle. So go through it. I have, and looked in all these different industries at people that were moving the needle. And it's very little that really matter. And if you take them out, we would have the shittiest society unbelievably. Truly, it would be total fucking garbage. So most everybody are Indians. And some are more capable labor than others. But they're still just labor. And so people on the upper end get very pissed. And they're like, just get the fuck rid of them. Because too much of a fucking headache. So wait, if you own a business and you see and you're like, I need to do this and that, and they're like Simon said, he taught in med school. And he told his students, you think we're going to have this esoteric discussion. And he told them, that's not how it's fucking working. I have lots of experience and I have my own practice. So I hit the rubber hits the road all the time. So when I tell you to do something, you either do it or I kick you out of the med school. I don't give a fuck about your opinion. If you want to, write it down on a piece of paper and I'll read it. And then put all your supporting stuff. Isn't that what they do with a PhD? Or when you're getting your MBA, you do your case study and then you put all your, and then you give it to the teacher? And you shut your fucking mouth? Because that's how it works. And it's the same thing here. If you got your opinion here, give it. What do I do with all my posts? I put unbelievable supporting data. All my research. These people, they open their mouth. I want to see the fucking stacks of fucking studies and support for your fucking perspective. That's the difference between me and all these. I support my stuff with substantial amounts of data. They open their mouth like, oh, I got an opinion. Well, alright, give me all the fucking data. Show me why you're so fucking right. They don't even do it in Shark Tank. It's a bunch of bullshit, that show. It truly is. They don't show me, you don't see the data and how they developed it, how they're getting the market, why the market is. I mean, they don't give you any of the fucking analytics. They don't give you shit of really how it works. The Prophet gives you more insight, but they don't have that show anymore. And Bar Rescue gives you more insight, the nuts and bolts, because they go into all the fucking operational. And I like those guys. But there's a lot of nuts and bolts that goes into it. These people, they just open their fucking mouth and you're like, hey bro, that's great. You got an opinion. Okay. So talk to me when you got a fucking stack of research that supports it. It's like my friend Paul. He's a microcardiologist. He says, and Simon, funny thing is, they don't know each other. It'd be great if they did. But Paul, I need at least 3 studies. And then I need to look at how the studies are done in that. So if you're bringing the same thing that Simon said, I set myself up for studies. So I did and put all the supporting data, then we got to build out the study. So it's a different way to operate. So I don't do this. And Sheila used to watch all my research in insurance. I spend hours and hours tearing a policy apart before I make a phone call. And then the people sometimes would just hang up. And I had a lot to say. I knew their stuff inside and out. I was highly prepared. You know, what they call luck. Opportunity meets somebody with preparation. If you're not prepared, you're prepared to fail. So I do this, and Sheila did make one good point, is that you spend all this time, hours and hours and hours, going through, tearing it apart, doing all this analytical, and then you pick up the phone and call them, and then they reject you. And now you spent 3 hours analyzing their policy. Well, I tore insurance apart. It's like this. Look at this fucking garbage. Truly. Fuck you! They should kill you, motherfucker! I mean, it's because the city of Chicago allows all this shit. They allow the garbage. And then they're like, oh, that person went off. No! They didn't go off the reservation like Columbine. Read about how long they were abused for. And fuck you, Loyola Law! So instead of a lawyer stopping the abuse, who stops the shooting, I read on all these shootings. Just like the Colorado thing. It was all this that built up over a long fucking period of time. Fucking pieces of shit. Truly, this systematic fucking neglect and abuse. So these things, like Charles Manson, I read through that case, Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, and you look back through and you see these things and you see this systematic failure of the system. Unfucking believable. Then we have DCFS, Department of Family and Child Services, and it's like, really, what the fuck are you doing? Because you're not doing your fucking job. So I look at this shit and the government flooding the country. There shouldn't be that many Hispanics. And then they fucked the voting pool. Black people got fucked. Asian people got fucked. White people got fucked. Native Americans got fucked. And because of what they did, all of a sudden, now they're going to take over America as the biggest voting bloc. That should have never fucking happened. But because the government, they don't do their job, and then you got to put up with them. Truly, now you're shackled with something, now you got to make it work. And then you wonder why all this disgruntled. And you watch the rise of all these white supremacist groups that they weren't immigrants. Make no mistake about it, they weren't immigrants groups. That was the Russian mafia and others. Those were criminal organizations. These were people that came from families that were here. They weren't immigrants. And then they get flooded with this, like Spanish Harlem. It just fucking blew up. And then you wonder why you have this. Like, I was in by Comiskey Park. And there was this guy chasing this black kid back, and they were having break-ins in the cars and that. And the city wasn't doing anything about it. But the Robert Taylor homes, they didn't go in and, have youth groups and employment or anything else. But first of all, they flooded them in these big fucking towers where they can't afford to live in the neighborhoods. And the Robert Taylor homes, and you don't understand, it dragged down, Cabrini Green and everything dragged down what? The value of real estate on the Gold Coast. And you got these people there, and the people that have paying all this property tax and that go through all this education, that earn their right to live there, now are shackled with all these families who didn't do the same thing, didn't make the right choices, and you say racial tensions. What fucking racial tensions? It has nothing to do about race. It has everything to do about education, and from there driving the economics. And they can't work for these fucking places. And there's not enough low-end jobs for them. Truly. Because most of the stuff, like Shirley Ann Ability Center, high-end jobs, nurses, other things. And in these businesses, like the advertising firms and that, and they have no ability to work for them. And no, they can't be personal assistants or anything else. Like KJ, she and I think it's May, who was Oh, what was she? It was in the Clint Eastwood movie. She was Mung. She went and met KJ, and she actually referred me KJ. They met at Oakton Community College. KJ was doing a vocational training to become a personal assistant. Both of them were in the program at Oakton College. And now worked for John, and she referred me KJ, and I hired KJ. But they got all the computer training and all that so they could work in the industry. And you keep on harping on this racism. It has nothing to do with racism. It has everything to do with righteousness and justice. And so you dump all these fucking people in, and then you drive down the property value around that area, Bridgeport. I knew a lot of people that lived in that area. You drive down the fucking property value because they flood the projects with all these people, and then they have nothing to do, and they go out robbing and the community, breaking into the cars, stealing and everything else. And people don't want to live next to the projects, so they have a hard time selling their house, and property taxes drop because valuations drop, and then the neighborhood, the infrastructure starts deteriorating and everything else. And it's because the government did it with their low-cost housing vouchers. We'll create these projects. Low-cost housing doesn't work. They have to have the skill base needs to match. And if they don't match the voucher with the skill, then it doesn't fucking work. And so what happens? How do they make their money? Lying, cheating, stealing, robbing, truly. Selling drugs. Oh yeah, selling crack, you name it. Fucking my friends Kenny and Andy used to go into Greeny Green to buy drugs. White kids. And so you get them doing all these drugs. It's the same things that happen in New York, LA, and everything else. And because they don't have the fucking what it takes, and then they put tons of them there, well, they find avenues to make money in alternative markets, which are all criminal markets. And so you keep on saying racism. It doesn't have anything to do with fucking racism. It has to do with people getting fucking fucked. That you flood in, they can't integrate. All of a sudden, thousands of black people are dumped upon these white people in this neighborhood because they build the and then they flood it up. And you're like, there's no like cultural integration. There's none of that. And they flood them upon them. And then the people that are there, like, what the fuck? It's like my brother-in-law's father, Stan, used to tell me he hated the fucking Cubans. And he used to talk about how they destroyed fucking Florida. And he said they flooded in, they didn't integrate, and he started a precision machining company and everything. And he's telling me not to Lair. This is me and him talking, me and Stan. And he's like, they flood them in, and then they do all these crimes. They don't have the skill base. The government doesn't give them vocational training. And then they dump them into the system. And they don't have the shit. And then they go to fucking all these crimes. They go and prostitute themselves out in Miami as fucking male whores and everything. And it's fucking a shit show. And then everybody's like, you're racist. Right. It has nothing to do with racism. It has, do you or do you not respect? And so you got these people that spend fucking millions on their houses and that. And then you get some ghetto fucking black kid that lives right in Cabrini Green, right from the Gold Coast, and they come down, they fucking throw their trash, they spit on the sidewalk, and then they threaten you with a fucking gun to hurt you. And they're like, hold it, I spent millions of dollars, I busted my ass, I purchased this property, and now the fucking government puts you right next door to me, and somehow it's my fucking fault that you can't earn the money. Now, you would say by voting, but the politicians lie about everything. So what did Mayor Daley do? He got rid of it. One thing he learned, his power base finally said, tear the motherfucking shit down and get rid of these fucking people. And that's what he did. And that neighborhood sprung back. So again, if you're not going to integrate them properly and do the fucking right thing, and that's why I keep on preaching about Jordan. Jordan did all of that in the refugee camps, vocational, everything else, and they only put them in communities where they were a benefactor. They didn't set up slums in Jordan with Palestinian refugees. That would have caused fucking unbelievable unrest. And oh yeah, the queen, because the king died, she was a American white lady. And Jordan took the most refugees from all those crises. But they're not oil rich or anything. They have to build out industries. Saudi Arabia and them, they didn't take any. But Jordan, they're not flooding their fucking country. But here we go sanctuary cities, we set up the projects, and we flood areas like East LA. They just flooded it. And then you got the white flight out of Los Angeles, which happened. And just like you got the white flight, there was white flight out of Chicago, shitloads. Just like you got with Detroit and other places. They just fucking left. And who did all this disharmony? Your fucking politicians. Because at least in the Senate, they get 6-year terms, which is much more stable. In the House, they're up every 2 years. And how can you stay abreast of trend? But the thing is, they just do this and you can't dump people in without them being required to do the work. And so you get people in like, no habla español. And then all the businesses is say habla español. Go fuck your Spanish. But the whole thing is, the system had to change because they flooded in so fucking many. And they didn't make it for the Polish immigrants. How about the Japanese immigrants? How about the Korean immigrants? How about the Chinese immigrants? Truly. None of them. How about the immigrants from the Middle East? Nope. But the government changed everything, and it's press 1 for Spanish. How about fucking the immigrants from Nigeria? And so you start creating racial tension because they see this and they're like, why the fuck do they have all these advantages? Why are they given this? They didn't earn it. And you start looking at this and you're like, my brother used to drive by Cabrini Green when I was a little kid. And you know what he kept on saying to me? He's like, must be nice to live in the Gold Coast because we can't afford this shit. And this is when I lived on Drake. And he talked about them carjacking They were carjacking cars on Division Street. So they go into the Gold Coast and then they have to go down Division to the Kennedy Expressway. And there was a stop sign right in front of the fucking entrance to one of the projects. And what did they do? All those people, they fucking carjacked them. They either robbed them and carjacked them right outside the project front door. And all those people go down to the Gold Coast. So what do? I'm not coming down to the Gold Coast. So all those Magnificent Mile, Oak Street, Walton. And Rocky had a friend that had a high-end suit store on Oak Street. And he hated fucking black people. He's a black guy. But he's talking about all the ones from Cabrini Green fucking robbing his fucking patrons. And here he's trying to sell thousands of dollar suits to high-end clients. But, you know, they don't want to go by the projects. You know, they don't want to be wearing their fucking Rolex, high-end suit, and get mugged by some fucking piece of shit. So you get a huge disconnect. And that's why I was talking about division right there. It's like that crowd doesn't belong fucking here. It needs to go back to what it was before. Where it went after, like I said, the university students, the upperclassmen, the grad students. I mean, there's enough. But, nope. And so you get this, and you don't understand the shit. And then you start... The lawyers make a fortune off of all these fucking suits. And then they use me, and they beat on me, and they torture me, and they do all this shit. And I'm solving the fucking problem. You're just not listening and implementing. So as God sees it, you should burn in fucking hell. Because listening to you created all this fucking shit. So raise the voting age to 21. No fucking 18-year-old should vote, but I think we should raise it to 25. And you're not allowed to vote before 25. I believe it should go in the opposite direction. As life expectancy goes, the voting age should actually go up. It should be indexed to life expectancy. Not the other way, indexed to life expectancy. See, all these kids think they're so powerful now because they have a right to vote. I want it fucking gone. And I want it indexed to life expectancy. So it just keeps on going up in age. Making sure before you can even vote, you have shitloads of experience. You've been out in the real world. 25. You've been out working for several years out of undergraduate and in the workplace. So I want them to move the voting age up, and I want it indexed to life expectancy. The worst thing we ever did was bring down the voting age. That created all the fucking unrest and the rallies and anti-Vietnam. And it did. Because now they had the right to vote, and they were rallying on Kent State and everything else. And that really fucked us. So, again, are they going to address all their fucked up shit? Because there's been a lot of unnecessary violence. Everybody lost. No matter what side the stick on you're on. So understanding this, when you bring people in, they have to have the right skills. So go work with, if you don't want to do it, temporary labor firms like I opposed. Go in, support it. Going into manpower in the Latin America net. Let them recruit. Let them train them on English. Truly. So use all the global labor placement firms. And they go out and they find the labor. The country tells them what they need. And they go out there. Give it to all the global talent scout firms. Truly. And then they can place them with the placement firms. And they tell them what they're looking for. Look at baseball. They have all these scouts and they're going out there. Well, the same thing. And so they go into these firms. They get all the training and everything. Then they set them up with the housing and everything and integrate them into the community. And then they support them when they're in the community. How's things going? Checking on the job. How's things working in the community? Is things working right at the housing? Well, yeah, the landlord's not good, or I'm having some issues with... Okay. What are the issues? Tweaking the integration. Look at this motherfucker. 2 open lanes comes right on my fucking ass. It's fucking unbelievable. Here, let me move over here. Pieces of fucking shit. I hate... Every day, this makes me hate lawyers more. Because the reason these people think I'm going to get a lawyer, it's going to be like the OJ thing, I'm going to get off. And they create that every criminal who does a crime now thinks they're empowered. And they're going to get away with it. I'm going to lawyer up, and then I'm going to lie on the stand. And so all these mothers are emboldened. Truly. What do you think you see, The Devil's Advocate, the movie? They're all emboldened. I'm going to get a lawyer. I saw that at Deerfield High School when the kids threatened the teachers. My father is going to sue you. It's like, wow. Fucking pretty ballsy kid. But I saw that left and right. And the teachers are like, well. So the kids run the teachers ragged. They're now the big shots. And how dare you discipline me? How dare you do that? It's amazing. So all these motherfuckers, get this, the cartel members, all that. And then they're going to go meet up with their friends in prison, and it's going to be a reunion. Watch the Italian Mafia movies. What do? The Goombas hanging out together in prison, and watch The Godfather. And then they have the table, and they're eating it, and, you know, they bribe the guards. And they're like, it's a reunion. And they spend time together every day. But that's what truly happened. It should have never happened. But that's what's truly going on. So when MS-13 goes in and you go into a prison in California, you just look for your buddies. So it's like going home. And you're like, hey, bro, what are you in for this time? Yeah, I'll be back on. I'll see you out at Blank's place when I get out, bro. But it's amazing. They have this reunion. And they're like, yeah, hey, bro, it's great to see you, man. What are you back for this time, bro? And so, but the last 10 years, I got no friends, right? 10, 11 years, all by myself. But they go into prison and they got fucking shitloads of friends. But me, none of my friends talk to me. I don't talk on the phone anymore. None of it. I'm in isolation. You know, I'm the crazy fucking white guy. People down here, they terrorize me with their fucking vehicles. Why should that be happening? I mean, Jennifer Kim was the prosecutor, right? And she can fucking put the pressure on the chief of police. And then she can ask for assistance from the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, the U.S. Marshals, whoever she needs. And so, because if you can't handle it, that's the whole point of the Department of Homeland Security. You go, well, I don't have enough. Okay, well, then you got the Cook County Sheriffs, you got the state police. You have shitloads. So, suppressing these fucking evil people should be no fucking brainer. And then you have all the private security that I see driving around. And so we have all these private security, we have all this, and I'm thinking all the fucking layers, and what are they doing? Sitting around and doing nothing? Because if I can get tailgated by this fucking piece of trash, then what the fuck are they doing? We have the city prosecutor, the county prosecutor, the state prosecutor, and then we have Fitzgerald, who was the federal prosecutor. I mean, don't we have enough prosecutors? Because they have all kinds of assistants with them. So, it's unbelievable. All the layers of personnel. So you can literally choke the fucking life out of them very easy. So I don't get it. I look at these people, what incompetent fucks. Truly. And then They're gonna go after me because they're incompetent fucks. So it's interesting. I get harassed going around extreme tailgating, and then this fucking piece of trash pulls behind me. And it's interesting. So, it's interesting how this works. My whole life, like, these fucking pieces of shit, they just let go. But me, they run me through the fucking meat grinder. And they can, like, do whatever the fuck they want. That's what I've seen. The bums, vagrancy, everything. And everybody can do what they want. Are you going to hit me? I don't have to speed up. But that car is speeding. Fucking Metro cop. Not even your jurisdiction. And you're a long way from the fucking Metro. You're a seriously long way from the fucking Metro. Aren't you supposed to be going down? The cop car can have those wheels where they hook onto the train tracks when they know the train, and they drive right down the train tracks. But here, look at this Metro. Do you see any Metro stops here? There's one way up there, but I don't see any fucking Metro stops. So, is this a wrongful allocation of police? Fuck yeah. Why are they even fucking over here? That's a waste of fucking gas. So, I don't get it. I truly don't get it. So we talk about here, I'm going to drive up by the Metro station. And the funny thing is, I've been by the Metro station and lots of videos, and I've never seen a Metro car, police car, once. Not fucking once. I've seen them on the street, but I've never seen them up there once. And I'm going back to the early 2000s with Jen when I lived up here. I never fucking see them. So obviously they're doing something besides the Metro. Like just hanging out bullshitting all day. So, I don't really get it. So, you don't think people are upset at this shit? And you're like, oh, really? My friend, who I worked with, volunteered with at Children's, who was going to grad school at Loyola University, who worked a full-time job, who also volunteered at Children's, he moved into a unit brand new unit on Division and Clybourne, right there at the intersection. And he paid $200,000-$300,000. And then he finds out there's vouchers in the building. And then he watches them, and like, they don't take care of the unit. They fucking loiter in the, entranceway and everything. They drop trash. They basically don't respect anything. And he's like, hold it. I go to graduate school. I work a full-time job. I volunteer at Children's. And now I'm living next door to somebody that has my same unit that has a voucher for it. And he's like, and he was a lib before. And he's like, so I got to do all this, and I have to pay my mortgage and association fees and all this. And then right next to me, somebody gets given a unit. And this is a brand new building. It was a brand new building. And he's like, that doesn't, and he was a big liberal. I knew him before he got it, and then he's like, and I didn't say anything to him. And he's like, telling me all this, and he's like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm busting my ass to get into grad school and go to grad school, and I'm working, and I go down, and they get the same privileges I do. And they don't have to work. They don't have to pay their bills because it's all subsidized by the government. And then now I'm interacting with them, and I should never even be talking to these fucking people. And somehow they're my neighbor. I thought my neighbor was going to be people like me. Here's the Metro. Do you see any Metro police? Truly. So he thought he was going to go get neighbors that were more like himself. That they would be able to have this commonality. Like Jen in her building, she lived around a bunch of other professionals. Just like herself. So, when you create this integration, you create a mix match in chemistry. And the government doesn't give a shit. And I said where they should be, their housing vouchers is you should be living in a neighborhood that you mix with educationally and economically. Because that's where you would naturally be. So if you have to subsidize them, you move into that neighborhood. And me and my mother lived all together. But John was a biochemistry major. He did get his real estate licenses, mortgage licenses. So he held multiple licenses. He did go to school for biochemistry. I'm a college graduate, numerous designations. So, but again, we're stuffed 3 into a 1-bedroom, a small 1-bedroom actually, as condos go. But we're not what the government's giving. They wouldn't give a voucher to us, right? Because we deserve to be down here, and we're the ones who can plug into the market because we have the education and background, and all we need is to be plugged in the right place, and things will work nicely. But the government doesn't figure that shit out. And then they're like putting people together that actually shouldn't be together. And then people end up in places they should never be. And so we have this thing. You need to be in the place. If you rose up out of Camden Connection and you busted your ass, then that makes your story unique. But you did it through hard work. As my friend Jeff used to talk all the time about the Camden Connection, all these kids that started out in the projects and made it into the NBA. Well, good. But they were around other people like them, weren't they? So they grew up around people like them. So that means people interact with the right people. And when you interact with other people, you meet them outside, this and that, that's fine. But I'm talking about the government throwing people in places, not integrated in them, and it doesn't fucking work. And then all of a sudden, like I said, in Bridgeport and that, all of a sudden, their fucking property values are getting hit huge. And that's all the money they have. And now, all of a sudden, they're racist. That's what happened in Spanish. Like they did this thing about the Puerto Ricans and Humboldt Park and so on. But the point is, if you look, property values were going way down. And they were overcrowding. Too many people living in the unit. And people that were there saw their neighborhood, like my brother was doing some projects and work in Humboldt Park as a carpenter. And one day he came into one of his job sites and there was a guy who was dead who basically overdosed on heroin. Now, he didn't tell me, white guy, Puerto Rican, he didn't tell me anything. He just said he came in and there was a guy that overdosed in the house they were doing construction on. Now, this is beautiful. Right here, I love this area. But, again, this is all Museum Park, beautiful view of the lake. And this is the playpen. Okay. But again, you evened out the water, well, then no carbon capture because there's no ripples, right? And so that wave creates an ecosystem. And so it happens further out. So you get one thing, but is it the right thing? And I'm saying they need to do studies on this area and compare it to the area on the other side of the break wall and look at the, the aquatic life and the underwater vegetation and everything. And then look at the amount of carbon capture on the outside of the break wall to the inside of the break wall. Because remember, it can hold more dissolvable oxygen, and it provides a lot of oxygen to the city of Chicago. But if you impede the water's motion, does that destroy the underwater vegetation, aquatic life, and all that might produce more oxygen for the city? Because you wanted to put in a break wall. But really, is that the best thing? So, I don't know. Maybe put in a reef instead of a break wall, right? As I put out, you can have freshwater reefs, and they're great for the ecosystem, and they do buffer wave action and everything. But anyways, so I'm constantly wondering what the government is doing about fixing their fuck-ups. Here's, Field Museum and, the stadium, the mistake on the lake. Truly, and people it looks like a saucer crashed into it, and not a lot of positive feedback. Tom Model used to constantly rail on it, but he wasn't the only one. I don't think he made up the mistake on the lake. He railed on it because it didn't have a dome or enough seating capacity. But again, you look at these areas like the south side of that all those people from Cabrini Green could have been placed in those areas, renting out those houses, renting out the apartments, and they could have had really good occupancy. But instead, they don't have occupancy, and you see a lot of, vacant structures or, structures with vacant apartments. And that's because they pushed them into the projects. But if they would have just put them into those communities, they would have filled up the low rent districts, and it would have stabilized all those properties, and it would have stabilized the schools and everything else. But instead, and much more quality of life. So, big difference. And so all those people struggled, and all those black people went belly up on their mortgages, and, their houses foreclosed and all that. Because the government took all the buyers out because they gave them vouchers. And then there was no requirement to work or anything. And so they were enslaved because they could only go where the voucher allowed them to go. So the government enslaved them. And then that led down to Karen Lewis and the teachers union and all the bad schools and the gangs and everything else, because they didn't have to work. Where I was with a bunch of black people who went up to Wheeling and worked with me at Handy Foil. And again, Sean and a bunch of others. And again, it's a big difference. So they destabilized housing markets all over the fucking place. And that's why you had so many foreclosures and many other things. And then what did they do? They took down the Robert Taylor and Cabrini Green without addressing the issues, meaning education and everything else, getting them out of gangs and so on. When they brought them up, and what happened? Then they spread them, and they took the gangs with them. So all of a sudden, now the gangs moved all... I wouldn't see gangbangers driving cars and that. They would be in Robert Taylor or Cabrini Green. But now they spread them out, and with that, they got vehicles. And with the vehicles came the drive-by shootings and all the types of gang action like you see in the Boys in the Hood in LA. Because they needed it for transportation. Then you get the flash mobs and using the RTA and the CTA, but primarily the RTA. And a black girl wrote a book. I don't know the name of the book, but she talked about that they should have cleaned up everything, but when they broke them down, they scattered them, and they spread all the gangs out all over, and it created turf wars. And now they got cars, and now they're gangbanging and drive-by shootings, and Chicago becomes the murder capital because they turned down the Robert Taylor, Cabrini, and they turned in Chicago into the murder capital. One thing about the projects, at least it was contained, and it truly was. But they broke it down and spread it everywhere. And I used to drive Rocky home, and this is in 95, and there used to be gangbangers on her corner. And her mother, she's talking about it, and she's got an older mother and father, and now they got to put up with the fucking gangbanging pieces of shit on their fucking corner. Not good. And then her baby Madison's there because that's where she leaves her baby as she goes to work, working for me at Charlie's. And that she's got to go into that neighborhood with the gangbanging pieces of shit as she's trying to support herself and her baby. And so I don't get it. I truly don't get it, and I'm going home. But I truly am just at a loss for that Jewel. Really, people didn't go to that Jewel because they got people from all the way down, and they were not good. All the bums in the bathroom and that, fucking filthy, dirty. And you got all these high-end people here at one time in It was one of the highest average salaries in the state of Illinois. And they wouldn't touch that jewel because it had a shitload of bums and bad actors. And the Jewel could have had a boom business with clients that had good amount of money, and it would have been good for Jewel. But what did they get? A lot of bums and bad actors and shoplifting and a lot of negativity. And so I don't get it. Before you break down something like that, you got to clean it up. The surge has to go in. You got to disassemble all the bad actors and have them have come to Jesus' moments. Before you take it down. Daley moved in the police station by Cabrini Green before he took it down. But that didn't reform anyone. That was to make people feel secure when they moved in after they tore it down, that they were well protected. So people would buy the high-end townhouses and condos and that. The Montgomery Ward's buildings, they converted into condos. And so people would feel secure. He moved in the police right there. But still not addressing the issue. Because once he scattered everybody, the gangs went all over, and then you got drive-by shootings and all kinds of turf wars. And also, you spread the drugs all over the city of Chicago. Oh, yeah, that's what they're making money, and you spread the drugs all over the fucking city. That's what they did. And they lived with their housing vouchers and that. And they spread the drugs all over. So in 15-14, we had the heroin epidemic that was all over the place. People dying left and right, heroin laced with fentanyl. But they spread out the distribution all over the fucking city of Chicago. Neighborhoods that didn't have drug distribution all of a sudden got drug distribution. Because all that distribution that was in the projects, like I said, they didn't solve the problem. And they fanned out all the drug dealers, all the gangs, and the gangs were making money through dealing drugs. And they fanned them out all over the city. So all these neighborhoods got the people on the corner selling drugs and doing drug distributions into the neighborhood. And you had a fucking booming drug epidemics and overdoses and that. Again, that's your brain trust of your politicians. And you elected them. So, is it shame on me or shame on you because you're the stupid motherfuckers that voted them in and re-voted them in? And you're the stupid motherfuckers with the news agencies. Do you think WGN was reporting on any of this? Showing any of this? No. They say hard-hitting news. Well, where were they giving the fucking dead honest fucking truth? Now, I'll give them the girl I heard that wrote the book on the projects when they took down about, you know, the shit getting dispersed and that. She was on WGN talking about her book and that, having a discussion about it once. But that's it. They could have did all kinds of journalistic pieces on that and fucking put the politicians' foot to the fire. Oh yeah, do you know the Tribune owns shitloads of real estate, or used to, in the city of Chicago? Do you know the Tribune Company was one big fucking real estate holder in Chicago? They owned a shitload of real estate. So, again, doing this would only help their own portfolio. Protecting their real estate, protecting their employees, giving better lives to the community, and then advertisers would have higher end people to advertise to, and so it makes it worth more to pay more money for commercials. And so again, you think WGN and ABC, NBC, it's all in their best interest. All their staff owns real estate, right? And they go out to local merchants and they go out to lunch. They don't want to be robbed like the alderman in Rogers Park. He went out to an Ethiopian restaurant that just opened. Some refugees opened the restaurant and he said the food was good. But when he walked outside, now these are black people, he walked outside and there was a young black guy who mugged him at gunpoint. Read the story, it's in the Tribune. And he was, visiting the new restaurant to check it out in Rogers Park, and he gets mugged right outside. Oh, remember Rahm Emanuel? They broke into his car, the mayor. They broke his window and stole shit out of his car. That's really good policing, right? That the mayor's car gets broken into. Yeah, that says a lot of great things. Or how about the alderman I just said it got robbed at gunpoint? That's all that great policing. Wow, it's amazing how it comes to their doorstep. Truly, right at their doorstep, with the gun in their fucking face. So, I thought that was kind of righteous, actually. Because in Rogers Park, I got a gun to the head and a gun pointed at getting off the RTA. I'm like, well, it's good that the alderman of Rogers Park got a gun put to his head. Now he knows what I feel like. And you think he would be all over the fucking police for their ineptitude. But as I drive around and get harassed, I guess, they're all good with that shit. The people doing all the evil and getting away with it, I guess it's all good. They must like getting, their car broken into. Oh, yeah, that's right. Natalie Martinez and her BMW. But did she do any hard-hitting investigation to find the people that were breaking into the cars? There was a story waiting. And I didn't see any follow-up. But she was on my Facebook and talked about how could they, these pieces of shit, they broke into my fucking car. She posted the pictures and she was complaining profusely. But wasn't that a great opportunity to solve the problem? To catch the bad guys? Like bring in forensics and do some fingerprinting on the vehicle? Truly. I don't understand why they don't do that. But they didn't, and she didn't request it, and she works for, NBC. They're investigative reporters. Is it Chuck Gowdy? These hard-hitting investigative reporters. Really? Doesn't seem like they're doing much of shit. But just puffing. So, it's interesting, but I watch her complain in that, And I guess she must feel how I feel a little bit. She understands. It's just her car getting broken into. And how irate she was. Incredibly irate. And now take it me being beat in the street and hit with cars on the highway and that, and attacked left and right. And I guess they're all good with it. But when it happens to them, all hell breaks loose. How could they? They're fucking scumbags. They're pieces of shit. I can't believe it. It's like Reagan getting shot. And then all, hell, James Brady, Reagan, all hell breaks loose, right? Well, I guess they know how it feels. But somehow we lose that understanding, or like, they said the baseball game and the guy coming from Illinois shooting on the field. Well, I guess they know how I feel as I constantly get harassed. And you think they would be some hard-hitting motherfuckers going after these pieces of shit with an incredible vigor. Truly, you think they would be going after them unbelievably. But, how about the politician who was shot in the head in Arizona, the female, by somebody in the audience? How does she feel? She's alive. You think she would be going after these motherfuckers like a motherfucker? There are people that have experienced it in Congress and that. At least they have a little bit of understanding. And you think they would be ruthless motherfuckers on these people, wanting to wipe them the fuck out. You think they would be highly fucking motivated. So again, here's a livery driver. Maybe we need to go with the driverless cars, because they won't run any red lights. They won't talk back to you. They won't flick you off. They won't harass you in any way, shape, or form. So I guess we get rid of them and go with driverless. Because, believe me, headache free. So I'd rather have a little technical breakdown than some fucking piece of shit tailgating me and then going off on me and flicking me off. I don't have to worry about that from a robot.